Today, we have a true Malaysian legend, Karu Selvaratnam. Apart from serving his country in the Navy, Karu is a double international sportsman for Malaysia. He captained the cricket team and captained its athletics team and ran in the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, which is very relevant for us now. Karu recently turned 80, and together with Zahir Merchant, we have the pleasure to sit down with him and hear his fascinating story. Zahir.
Thank you, Gopal. It's a privilege to be on, and I'm really looking forward to this interview with Karu. Karu?
Good evening. Good evening to you.
Hi, Karu. Thank you so much for being with us. Karu, I'd like to kick off at the beginning, which is, where were you born?
Oh, I was born in actually we lived in Malim Nawa. You know, Malim Nawa used to be a communist bastion those days. So all my siblings, my brothers and sisters, were all born in Malim Nawa. But I do not know. Records show that I was born in the Batu Gajah hospital.
Right, because record keeping in those days wasn't great, right?
I don't know for what reason. I was the only one amongst my siblings. I read at the birth certificate, it says Batu Gajah. So and the birthplace Batu Gajah.
Okay, officially. And your parents came, were they first generation from Sri Lanka?
Yes, they came. They came in. I think they came around 1932, 1934. Now you know the background is that my father is a Ceylonese Tamil, and my mother is a Bumiputra Sinhalese. So I really haven't asked, and I didn't have the guts to ask. I don't know why, but I'm not sure whether they eloped and got married in
Sounds
Malaya.
like a deadly combination.
Yeah, or they got married and got away from Ceylon.
Now you had a
sort of a combination was quite a taboo in Ceylon those days.
Now I noticed that your youth, you spent many years in Sri Lanka, but I'd like to start off, Karu, by asking you the influence of your parents on you as a young kid here, growing up in colonial Malaysia.
How do I put it? My parents had a strong influence in that. One, my father was like Taras Bulba, very dominant person in the family. Mm-hmm. My mother was the soft one, and I'd like to think that I was my mother's pet. You see, because I was the middle. There was I had two brothers older to me, two sisters below me, so I was in the center. So for some reason, I think I believe I was very close to my mother. My mother and I had a lot of times when I was growing up. I was also one of them among my brothers who never ate outside, went to school, came back home, and ate mother's cooking all the while. So that's
Lucky
the way
man. Lucky man.
Yeah, all the time, and saved my pocket money.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And as I said, my father was a very, very dominant person in the family.
Right. And I obviously you're well known as a sportsman now, but going back to those days, growing up with them before you went to Sri Lanka, were you encouraged to play sports, or was education the be all and end all like most Asian families?
I think in my family there was a good mix at that time. If I can remember, I'm going back like about 70 years ago, when I was a young boy, about 7, 8. Our house in Malim Nawa was, slightly above, like on a hilly top, and we had a school field on the right, Malay school field on the right, and my house was a bungalow house, the father's property. It had land, and my father had built a badminton court. And so that is how we all took up badminton. All my brothers, my sisters was 2 years. One of my sisters wasn't born yet.
Mhm.
So there were three of us, and my mother's brother, uncle, Albert, he was then about maybe 15 years old. So we all used to play badminton. So my father used to, with his sarong, come and join us and play badminton. That's how we all grew up. And it was a good childhood.
Right.
But the caning never, the rotan was still there.
Was never spared, huh?
That one. If you did anything, you stepped out of line, you got it.
Let me ask about badminton. I mean, did you, when you started playing badminton, were you? And we know now, of course, you're ambidextrous. You play with both. Did you play badminton as a young child with both hands as well?
No, badminton, no. But I didn't realize that, Gopal. When I was growing up, I didn't realize. I only realized I was ambidextrous when I was a bit older, when I had gone to Sri Lanka. That's when I
realized it, though. How did you realize that? Did you start batting left-handed, right-handed?
No. It's not so much. According to my mother, I was a lefty, but they kept knocking my left hand and forced me to do things on the right hand. But I was not aware of that. I was not aware, and really, how I realized it was when I took up the game of cricket in boarding school at St. Anthony's. And I was asked to throw the ball. So when I threw the ball, I automatically picked up the ball with my left hand and threw the ball with my left hand. I myself was not aware of what I was doing. But when it came to bowl, I was bowling with my right hand. When I was throwing with my left hand. And when I was batting, when they taught me, coached me on batting, I was right hand. So we just left it that way. But gradually, as I grew up, I decided that, hey, I could do both. I could bowl. So, in fact, it was my coach. My coach was the under 14 coach was Father Morris. Mine was a Catholic school. Father Morris was our under 14 coach, and he is the one who told me, why don't you try bowling both hands? We could, in cricket, you are allowed. He said, where you can tell the umpire you're changing hands and stuff like that. I mean, all this was new to us, and cricket was a game that I had never thought I would ever play. Because when my eldest brother was in boarding school in St. Michael's, we used to travel from Malim Nawa over the weekend to go and see him. So we used to stand at the Ipoh Padang, under the Tambusu trees, and watch 11 fielders and two umpires and two batsmen going in and out. Never understood what the hell was going on, and never ever realized that one day I was going to take up that game.
So let's move to how you came to be introduced to that game, and you went to Sri Lanka at the age of 10. And I think as far as we are aware, 10 class, and correct, and it was supposed to be a fleeting visit for you to see your grandfather who wasn't well, and you ended up spending, I think, 4 or 5 years there. How did that occur?
Actually, my mother is the eldest in the family. She's got also about one sister. The youngest in the whole mother's family was a sister. Oh no, sorry. The uncle who stayed here was the youngest. Anyway, there was 2 girls. My mother was one, and there was another one, and all the others, 3 others were boys. So I think there were 6 in the family. My mother was the eldest, and so it was. They came here in 1934, and then 1951, the news came. That's after how many years? 1934, about 15 years later, news came that the old man was dying, you see. And before he died, he wanted to see my mother because she's the eldest, and whether he could see the grandchildren as well. So my father decided that, he may have, I do not know when he had planned to go, but he must have planned it for some time. And he organized it, and we went by steamer, those days. We went by SS Rajula.
Oh, you still remember the ship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went by SS Rajula and came back by Italian boat by the name of Comato. I remember that. So anyway, we went over the end of year holidays, which is 6 weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So my father took leave. He was working with a British firm called Perak River Hydro, and he was his chief storekeeper. So he took leave, I think 3 or 4 weeks of leave, and he joined us on the trip to Sri Lanka, Ceylon, and we were supposed to come back. But the old fellow didn't die, man. I mean, he just got stronger day by day, and 3 years went by, and
Wow.
he was up and about playing cricket with us.
Wow.
Joined us playing cricket in the yard in front, and so my father had no choice. We were almost, in fact, even going to be converted to be Catholics in this Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
My brother knew all the prayers. My brother was an altar boy, but me and my other brother Kana, I do not know whether you know him, the one immediately elder to me. Both of us couldn't recite our scriptures,
Mm-hmm.
So we were not ready. So the father, I don't know, I can't remember his name. He said, I can't baptize one and not the others. You see? So he left the baptism aside. Twice we went. Both times we were not ready, me and my brother. So my father finally, after 3.5 years, or almost 4 years, I think 3 years and 8 months later, he decided that we come back. So I think we came back in April 1955.
55, yeah, and then you went to ACS. So let me just ask you, and cover this very quickly. The cricket, obviously, you picked up in Sri Lanka, as you told us, and discovered, you were ambidextrous, etc., etc. Let me ask you about cricket in Sri Lanka in those days. Was it a national game already then?
It was the sport. Sport. We were playing our. I was in the club, in the school club, the club called Ramblers.
Mm-hmm.
So I was playing for the Ramblers, tennis ball cricket, and during the 20-minute recess, the league matches go on in the field.
My goodness.
That's how. So we started with tennis ball cricket, and then how crazy these people are. After tennis ball cricket, they graduate into leather ball, but because we couldn't afford a leather ball, they call it Lee. Lee in Sinhalese means wood.
Right.
So they cut a cube, and play on a tennis court, cement tennis court. So they bowl the cube on the tennis court. The bloody cube, if it lands on the cement, it could go
No idea where.
No idea where, and no pads, and you had your wooden bat, and you played, and the sound of the bat against the wood is the sound of music. It's like playing leather ball cricket, and that's how we graduated.
Wow.
And and then I tell you that gave you very good reflexes. You get hit on the head by the cube, and good reflexes, and your agility improves. Your agility improves everything of the game. You're sharp, and when you transform that into leather ball cricket, it's fantastic. It's like you're already there in the game. Nothing much to do.
Right. So right. And did you naturally do everything? The bowling with both arms and batting?
Yeah.
Or did one develop before the other?
I started off completely as a right arm bowler and a right hand batsman, but my throwing was all the time left hand.
Left. Okay.
But I could throw with the right, of course.
Right.
I could throw
and did you get formal training in school in St. Anthony's there when you were?
The under 14. The father Maurice was our coach.
Right.
We used to go and practice twice a week with him in the evenings, and once in a while he will seat us down. And the school coach, Mr. Pereira, I think it was Maurice Pereira or something. I remember him. he was coaching the senior team, and he used to sit us there, and ask us to watch the practice going on and explain the game
Yeah.
while the senior team was practicing on the field.
Okay.
See?
So
that's how
55 you grew up. Okay, 1955 sees you back in Malaysia, in
Yeah.
Ipoh this time, at ACS.
Yeah.
And obviously up to this point, cricket has been the central sport you played. Was studies an important part of your schooling experience, or was sport the main thing?
Where in Sri Lanka?
In Sri Lanka?
No, in
I was actually a very good student when I was in my preschool here was in ACS Kampa. I used to travel
Right.
from my father. He should send us from Malim Nawa to ACS Kampa. My father had his own school in Malim Nawa.
Right.
He called ACS Malim Nawa. But then when we went up to primary 1, 2, 3, and 4 and all that, we went to ACS Kampa, and I had a double promotion. I still remember, from standard 3 to standard 5 when I was in ACS Kampa. And then from there I went off to Sri Lanka, and then my studies got disrupted when I was there. You see, we were not prepared to go to school. We were supposed to come back. So entering us in school wasn't a priority there at that time. My father was waiting for us to bring us back, you see. So there we lost out. I think all of us, my brothers and I, we all lost about 6-7 months of schooling. And when we went in, we lost 1 year.
Yeah.
Then when we came back again here in 1955, I was 15 years old. Was I 15 in 55? I would have been 14 plus. 14 plus, coming to 15. And I should have been in Form 3. But I couldn't get into Form 3. And I didn't get into school until we came back in April. I joined school, I think, in August. And the headmaster was a German, Mr. Kesserling. He said, you come back in 1956. So we went in 1956. So we lost another year there. You see?
The story is that you were, whilst you were in ACS, that you kind of took up running because you were by the sidelines, and you were handed a pair of shorts, and you were told, go run as a replacement for some injured regular runner.
Not shorts, a running vest.
A running vest. Okay.
Yeah, that was in 1956. You see, what happened was I was a water boy together with a few others. A very enthusiastic and team man. Mix the orange, put the running vest all in the thing and dye it blue. We were Targo House. Our color was blue. So I was that sort of a fellow, very team man kind of thing. And now my team. Our house master was one teacher called Rasadure. And he was a state footballer. So that's how, he asked me to, because the runner was Shanmuganathan, Muthutambi's son, Shanmuganathan, M. Shanmuganathan. He was an 800-meter runner, actually, and he was also a member of the Targo House 4x400. He got injured in the race, in the individual race running the 800. So they were looking for a replacement. Nobody wanted to run the 400, you see. So, Rasa, those days how the teachers treat us, and die, they shout from there. Die! I heard that sound. First I decided not to pay any attention to the sound, but that Selvaratnam, die! Selvaratnam, 2-3 times, Then I turned around. So I acknowledged this. So he just, So he just simply took one vest. I don't know whose bloody vest he took, and just gave it to me and just changed and go in. The shorts were the same shorts we used, the school shorts. I had the short, but it was by nothing. So I went in, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. He told me, go there, the starter is there, go. He said, go inside and run. So that's all I knew, and that's how I think I must have run for my life. I didn't know what I was doing. But
shoes, no shoes, or with shoes?
No, barefooted, bare shoes all. Barefooted we ran, and the sports secretary, there was a fellow, sports secretary was a teacher by the name of Mr. Lee Hu Ket. You see, he was, I think, doing talent spotting as well. Sports day was a talent scouting thing as well. So he observed my run, because when I was given the baton, I was a second runner. I was given the baton. We were lying around third, I think, and at least about 10-15 meters behind the leader. So ACS EPO is a 200-meter track. You have to run it twice, and that makes it worse. You have no way of assessing where you speed and when you slow down. So So anyway, I ran a race and I overtook and I handed the baton with a couple of meters lead. So that must have impressed Mr. Huket, and that's how I got drafted in. After the race, Rasodre told me, Monday morning you go and see Lee Huket wants to see you. See, so that's how I got drafted into the school relay team as a reserve.
Right.
And after that, it was just
athletics.
And
cricket then took a break at this.
I already played cricket for the school. I already started playing cricket for the school. The athletics came after that.
Right.
And then what happened in '56 also, what is his name? The legendary Jesse Owens was around town. And our headmaster, Mr. Tirath Ram, got him to come to the school to deliver a talk.
I want to come to that in a moment, but just before that, I think for our viewers, I need to just introduce that angel who is on Karu's shoulder, and that's Rohini, who's been by his side for decades. Hi, Rohini. Spotted you there.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. I wanted to ask about Jesse Owens, and how he ended up in your school. He'd run in the Olympics in Germany in '34, I think it was.
36.
36. And I mean, I've read somewhere that he was the one who inspired you and made you more disciplined in terms of your approach. But what I'd like to ask you is, what can you recall what it is that he said that just changed your approach?
Okay, we went to his talk was in the church, the Wesley Church, our school church, and we went there, and he was talking about his life how he grew up. They were farmers, and he used to help his father doing the farming, but he was also interested in running, and he had no training partners. And he used to run with the horses. He used the horses there, as his training partners. And he was talking about diet. And there were some questions on the floor about diet, and he used his word spuds. But at that time I didn't know what spud was. But he explained later. Some people I think asked, and because we only know it as potatoes.
Yeah,
yeah. So he said his staple food was spuds.
Potato.
See, and there's one thing that he mentioned that always I never forget. I use it today, and I even whenever I talk in my motivational talks that I give, I always mention this. Is that always understand that your body is your best. Thermometer, barometer. You see, your body is your best gauge. It's not what others tell you that you must do, it's what your body requires. He gave one example. He said, if you feel like, there's a lot of people who say, he said, after a training session, you're not supposed to drink cold water, ice cold water. I don't believe in that, he said. If at that time you're that thirsty, you're really feeling thirsty, and somebody tells you to take warm water, but you're craving for a glass of chilled water, take it, because that will make you feel better mentally. So actually it's a mental kind of a thing which we were not told about.
Right.
See, one is on the health side, but you take the warm water, but you are not mentally satisfied. But if you had taken cold water, but I talk about cold water, I don't mean freezing cold water, but cold, not warm, but temperature that is slightly better than warm. Your body feels good, you feel good, satisfied, and I think that plays an important part. So basically, he says you must do what your body wants you to do.
And that stuck with you. Can I also ask, what was he like as a personality? Did he have this aura about him?
Well, you know, Gopal, African Americans, they are big fellows, huh? He was already standing at that time. He was about, I think he was, his natural height is about 6'3", I think.
Wow.
Something like that. And he was still at that time still big and broad. He was not old. Huh? You're talking about 1956. He ran in 1936.
34.
He must have been about
36.
50 years.
Yeah.
You know, maybe about late 40s. Must have been 50s, and he's looking big and strong and powerful. And but he was a nice man. He was very humble in the way he spoke. He was talking about the people he ran with in Germany, that the white guy he beat and how the white guy came up to him. You know, and he mentioned all that.
Right,
you know?
right.
Is there any one thing that you take away from that whole thing that stays with you until today?
Yeah, that he inspired me in that sense that, you know, that there's no such thing as giving up. There's something. If there is a will, there is a way to do it. You must always look for the way to do it and find a way to do it. You know, and that's something that there are a few things that a few people have said to me in life. You know, like I tell you about in the Navy. Even in the Navy, I had a English commander. You know, he was the area commander, Captain Burgoyne, who eventually became he became the second Sea Lord of the Mediterranean Fleet. In 1969, when I was working under him, he caught me having a glass of beer on a Wednesday afternoon, together with some other people he didn't like. You know, and I was his blue-eyed boy. He loved me very much. I was coaching his wife badminton and the ladies team, you know, and he loved me really. I could never do anything wrong in front of him. But when he caught me on that day, and he caught me at 4:00 in the afternoon, that means I was drinking from about 1:00. I must have been there for 3 hours. So he was very disappointed seeing me. He has never seen me drink. But I actually didn't drink. I wasn't drinking then, those days. I took up drinking very late in life after I got married.
Hey.
So the next morning, he called me up, you know, and he said this to me. He said, you know what's this whole what's wrong with this country and this Navy is that you people give 100 reasons why you can't do a job. If you spend the same amount of time thinking of one reason how you can do it, you will be a better nation and a better Navy.
Wow.
These were the exact words, and this rings in my mind all the time. Never gone. It's been 60 years now since he said that.
Let me pivot now to the two sports that you ended up representing Malaysia in, and just ask you a little bit about the system at that time. You were in school. Obviously, you had made the choice, and your parents had backed the choice for you to pursue sports. What was the system like in terms of getting selected for athletics and getting selected for cricket in the late 50s?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, my father was a dominant person. He never encouraged me to take up athletics. Never. He only encouraged me to take up cricket. But my father was from St. Joseph's College in Ceylon, and he played cricket for the St. Joseph's College. So he wanted all of us to play cricket. And that's exactly what he did. He used to take us to the cobbler to make the boots, buckskin boots, and sew the trousers and the shirts and all that, tailored, all that he did. But when it came to spikes, running shorts, running spikes, no. So that one, only my mother encouraged me. I had to hide the spikes under my school bag, put the books on top. The rattan bag we used to carry those days. And that's how I used to do my school, my training. So I come back home. I leave the spikes with my friend. I come back home, have my lunch, and go back 3:30. Go back to school without the spikes. Where I try cycle and then go and train and then come back. Tipu and do it lah. But later when I became good, I think my mother must have told him, just leave him alone. He likes doing it, let him do it. But I was doing well on both.
Yeah.
So my father didn't interfere too much in my athletics training.
So, but in terms of as I say, the structure, the national level structure, I mean, you've been in administration, sports administration as well for both. But looking at what athletes get today compared to what you had in those days and that kind of selection process to become an international, what was it like in those days?
My days, during my time, what you call Gopal, was completely different. You see, when I was selected for the 1960 Rome Olympics, there were 4 of us. Tan Sri Jaga, Dato Shahrudin, the late Kamarudin, and myself. 4 of us were selected to go to Rome. And we were centralized and we were training and we were staying in that majestic hotel, next to the railway station.
Yeah. And this is for the 4x4, right, Karu?
No, 400 we ran for
the 400
individual events.
Right.
I was for the 400-meter hurdles. Jaga was for the 400 flat. Shahrudin was for the 100. And Kamarudin was for the long jump.
Right.
And we were in centralized training and something like about maybe 8 days or 7 or 8 days before the flight to Rome. Well, in the morning as I was coming down from our room and we were in the lobby, after breakfast we had gone up to bring our things down. I met the Olympian or the Olympic Council Secretary, Mr. late Tong Po Nien. He was there. He need to meet us. Then he singled me out and called me. And he gave me the bad news. He said, Karu, that time I was known as Selva. Selva, I am sorry to tell you that the Olympic Council has no money to send 4 athletes. We have only sufficient money to send 3 and decided to drop you.
Did he say why? Did he go into any details about it? Nothing.
No, I actually, in the morning when your news like that comes to you, you are taken up. You are shocked. Number one, you are shocked, and my knees went soft. Honestly, it went soft. Fortunately, I was a strong enough person in the mind, and I didn't faint. News. And I had told my brother, my elder brother, who was then studying in UK as a teacher in Brinsford College, that I'll be in Rome for the Summer Olympics. I'll meet you in Rome. And he had made all his plans to meet me in Rome. And here I'm due to fly in a week's time. And I'm now told I can't go. Okay, no money. So, Para Cricket Association, Athletics Association said that they would pay. They would pay for it. But the Olympic Council turned them down. Turned them down for whatever reason, maybe, I do not know. So that was it. It fell flat. And then it was many things. It motivated me. It got me angry, but it motivated me to work the next 4 years for the Tokyo Olympics, which is what I did. Planned it properly, read a lot of books, magazines, and I then joined the Navy. I was in Woodlands training all by myself. The sailor boys were only drinking. They only know how to drink, right? I was the only one. They thought I was mad, training alone, all by myself. Then I had one more guy there, Viji, who was a sprinter. And then I managed to get a few boys to get interested in athletics, and we had a group. But so I was on my own, and I used to train, and I used to go to Farrer Park in Singapore, join Jega, and on weekends, twice a month at least I go. That's how we used to train, and we had no coaches, nothing. We trained on our own. A little bit of help we had from the coach from Singapore, Jiga's coach Tan Eng Yoon. He used to help us a bit, but he was too busy. He had too many other athletes. He had C. Kunalan, he had Jega,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, Wong Fio.
Did you know him, by the way? Did you know Kunalan?
Yeah, of course I know him. I know
Right.
him. Yeah. So, I was not a Singaporean, you see. So I was a Malaysian running there. So his priorities were different. I don't blame him. But he didn't sort of leave me alone, or he took care of me. He took care of me and asked me to join the group. So I had every time I went to see to Singapore twice a month. I go there and stay in some other relative's house, some friend's house. Take a bus. I take a bus, 50 cents bus from Woodlands to Singapore. And when I go for my athletics, when I run from Singapore, I got to go to KL or go to Penang or go to Ipoh. I was then an apprentice. I was not yet an officer. As an apprentice, you are considered still as an other rank. And my train ticket was only third class. I got no sleeping berth. I bought the train in Johor Bahru at 10 o'clock at night. My bed was where we put our bags up on the top, above the seats. I clear the top and sleep there.
My goodness.
I sleep there at 10 o'clock and the train goes off. I wake up next morning, 6 o'clock, it reaches KL, 6:30. I get down, and then if I'm going to Penang, I connect up the 9 o'clock train to go to Butterworth and then go from there. And that's how I used to manage myself.
So it's very solitary. I mean, it's really everything is down to you rather than today. I mean, you've got these teams of psychologists and physios and fitness, nothing at all. That was all down to you.
It's all, even spikes, we have to get on the cobbler,
Yeah.
When I went to the Tokyo Olympics in 64, gentlemen, the tracksuit they gave us didn't even fit us. When you warmed up, the tracksuit was coming down. It was European size from Bulgaria. Right. Bulgarian tracksuit, and they didn't give us spikes. We had our own. There was one guy there in Singapore. There was one sports shop by the name of one guy, Ram Singh or something like that. I can't remember him. He used to be a Puma dealer.
Yeah.
I can't get his name now. But
he used Sports, Western, one of the two.
I
can't been around for a long time.
Yeah. So he used to come and give me once in a while. He'll come and give me a Puma spike, But that one, how long can it last, Puma spike? And being a hurdler, your wear and tear is even faster.
Karu, can we quickly ask you in terms of timing? Would you have felt that your timings were comparable, let's say, to some of the international timings? Were they very good within an Asian context? How would you describe the timings?
I think in terms of Asia, I was there. I was about the top hurdler in Asia. I should have won my gold medal in the Asian Games in 1962. Right. I was told by my American coach, the gold medal is hanging in front of you. Just run and wear it. Because I was faster than the two Japanese guys who beat me. But the thing is that this is why exposure is important, you see. It was 1962 Asian Games in Jakarta, and we had no exposure. We were running in Ipoh and Penang and all that, and then suddenly you're going to Asian Games, 100,000 people in the stadium. It's a shocker, And I ran too fast. I ran the first hurdle. You see, the 400-meter hurdles is a race of rhythm. It's so many steps, and there you are, you see. If I had been in the United States or somewhere else, because of my ambidextrous ability, if somebody had told me that I could train me to hurdle on both legs, That would not have happened in Jakarta. I ran so far. You see, at that time, from the blocks to the first hurdle was, I think, 21 steps at that time. But I ran so fast that if I had taken one more step to leap to hurdle, I would have crashed into the hurdle flat. So I had to take off from where I was. And from where I was too far away. If I taken one more step up, I would have banged in, crashed. So I had to take off from where I was. So I leaped forward over the hurdle. My front leg was able to move, but I was already coming down, descending. So my rear leg hammered the crossbar so badly that I fell down on my force. And gentlemen, those days, the hurdles, they were not made of fiberglass like today. The very crossbar was solid wood, and what do you call, the frame was made out of steel. So when you hit, it was really a bad hit. So I went down on my force, woke up, and it was catch me all the time, And finally, I was playing catch up right up to the 9th hurdle. Up to the 9th hurdle, I was lying 4th. The two Japs were in front, and the Indian, one fellow by the name of Seth from India, he was number 3. And I overtook him just before the 10th hurdle and finished. And with all that, I did 53.8. You see, and the Japanese only did 52 something, and my best time at that time was 52.8. And there, if I had actually not knocked my hurdle, I believe I could have gone below a very good, strong 52 or below 52.
52.
I knew it. So to answer your question, I forget the name. By Asian standards, yes, I was there. When I was running at that time 52.78, the world record was just under 50. It was 49.7, I think, or 49.8. There were only 2 guys. The rest were all running 50 and above. There were only 2 guys in the world running below 50. One was Italian, Salvatore Morale, and then the American guy, I think Rex Crowley.
Karu, we're going to quickly pivot to the Tokyo Games in a second, but just before we do that, quickly, if you can tell me, why did you love running so much?
See, running was taking me places. See, cricket, I was good at cricket, but I was just knocking around in Singapore, KL, and I'm not going anywhere. For some reason during my time, the interport with Hong Kong also was not. I don't know whether it was taking place, but I probably would have been busy with the athletics, and therefore I probably also didn't. Like, for example, when the Commonwealth 11 came here with Garfield Sobers and Rohan Kanai, I had to skip it in 1964 because I was already qualified to go to the Tokyo Games.
Yeah.
I was picked for both games, one in Singapore and the one in KL. So I said initially no to the Singapore one. You had an opening batsman who was supposed to open with me, a guy by the name of Woodhouse, John Woodhouse. He was the opening batsman. He insured himself for $10,000 Singapore for that game. And I went to the Padang to have a look at the game. And he actually got his right or left hand forefinger cracked against Chesterfield or somebody, the West Indian bowler. Broke his forefinger and he had to walk back, couldn't bat anymore. So I said to myself, if I get hit like that, in those days, no helmet, nothing, durian gloves, If I get hit and get injured, I'm risky. I already lost out the 60 Olympics.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose out in the 64 Olympics.
Right.
So I pulled out of that game. You see, so But as I said, athletics was at least taking me places. I was going to Bangkok, Philippines for
Yeah.
meets like that. But cricket was not taking me anywhere. I loved the game. It's still my first love. You see, second love. My wife says first love.
First love athletics, lah, Rohini.
First love the wife.
Yeah, so I hope that answers the question. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
No, I think-
busy
yeah,
to
I think
manage
it does.
both as well.
Well, I think that's the difficulty for people who are multi-talented and have to balance that. One has got to sacrifice for the other, especially at that kind of level. So let's now turn to Tokyo, and of course, very relevant because in a couple of weeks, a couple of days' time, they are running the Olympics there again. So this time you made it, and you represented Malaysia, and of course, ultimately you ended up as captain of Malaysian athletics. But tell us about village life in Olympic Village in Tokyo in the 60s. Or cannot because Rohini is there.
No, cannot. No problem. You see, the Olympic Village is a very interesting place. It's actually it's like a huge campus, where I stayed, it was a bungalow house. And my roommates, there were 3 rooms, 2 to a room. In my bungalow, it was myself, Asir Victor, Jagadisan, Nashata Singh, R. Subramaniam, and I don't know whether Kunalan was one of them. If it's not Kunalan, it was one other, somebody else, Rahim Ahmad could be, So there are 6 of us in a room, and we all had each bungalow was given 3 bicycles, So we cycled everywhere we wanted to go, and it was fun, good fun, And they had about 4 or 5, no, I think 5 dining halls representing each continent. You know what I mean? They had the European dining hall, the Asian dining hall, the African dining hall. Yeah, beautiful, and the chef, and they give you the food is prepared according to your continent, like Asian food,
right,
things like that. And there were, you see, when you walk in, it's into the thing. You have one section which is all fruits, bananas, apples, oranges, you name it, all there, and then juices. You just pick, and go what you want. The Pakistani wrestlers will take the grapes, like that, and go to eat. And after they finish eating, they go back and take some more grapes and go back.
Like a Roman orgy, lah.
It was good, pa. So we had plenty, ample food. And after we finish eating, then we go into the recreational center, the Games Village. That's an interesting place because there you have got the dance floor, the band. They have live band sometimes just music. And then you get all the people seated. And the most interesting people for me at that time was the people from CCCP. You remember that?
Yeah, Russia, Soviet Union, yeah.
USSR.
USSR, yeah.
They were there, so the Russian translation is CCCP. They were the quietest fellows. They will come and sit down there. They are girls and they are the men quietly sitting down there. We don't know whether they're spying on whom, So we are there, and we only had one lady in our team, in the athletics team. It was Rajamani. So she's a real mommy. So no dancing, this one, that, all is out of the question. So we the only way we can if you like the music and you want to go and dance, you got to pluck your guts and go and ask one of the lady athletes from other countries, lah. I tell you, I thought I was a very good dancer, you see, but when I saw the African people dancing to the music, they were like boneless, man.
Yeah.
The way they moved, they had like no bones in their body, the way they were dancing. So I was a bit embarrassed to go in and dance also. So we thought the best thing to do was sit down there, enjoy the music, have a drink, a glass of juice,
Yeah.
And we spoke. We met a lot of friends. I met all my legends. All the people that I used to read about. They were there. The coaches, some of the coaches. So the
And can I just
athletes.
stop you there? And sorry, when you meet them, did you talk to them about the technique, about technical stuff, or
Yes.
is it? Yeah, you do. So it's very open and sharing kind of
Very nice.
atmosphere.
And they were happy to share. Huh?
Yes, the Americans are quite good. I mean, the African Americans, and there was a guy also. Even the British athletes also were nice. I only mixed very much with the Africans, American athletes, and the British athletes because the language we could speak English.
Mm.
Otherwise, you're on sign language. I made friends with some good Hungarian athletes, but they cannot talk. The guy he's talking something, I'm talking. So we are going on and getting nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you want to make your time in the games village meaningful and useful, so you go to people who can understand you and you can understand them. So we exchange notes, not so much exchange. Like in our case, we were acquiring knowledge. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's amazing how much we didn't know and lost out on so many things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And why they are so good and why we. And I don't believe we are not good. I believe you got to have belief in you got to believe yourself that you are good enough. See?
Mhm.
And I don't believe that that we cannot match them. It's just that we were not given that the privilege and that opportunity. Unlike today, if you
Yeah.
time tunnel it to such today, if I was given that kind of facilities or not me alone, but people of my vintage, with the talent that we had, it would have made a much bigger difference to our achievements. You see.
Well, let's wrap up on the athletic side just by asking you what it was like performing in the Olympic Stadium in '64.
Okay, as I said, we had no exposure, hardly any exposure. We were not taken anywhere before the Olympics to be given exposure in other events, international events. It was just straight centralized training, boom on the plane, and off you go. And for some reason, my memory serves me right. The weather that year in '64 when we went was not very good. It was quite chilly. And you are talking about '64. Our temperatures here at that time ranged between 27 and about 31, 32. At that time, and you're talking about flying and arriving there. The temperature is 13 degrees, 12 degrees. And it can be quite.
Biting.
Yeah, and when you're running, if you're running the 100 meters and the 200 is not so bad. 100 is not so bad at all. 200 maybe a little bit more, but when you're running events like the 400 meters, the 400-meter hurdles, 800 meters, you not only you have a lot of endurance input. You see, so when you talk about endurance, you're talking about punishing yourself. You're looking about oxygen intake, to keep you going. And I think we only arrived about 4 days before the opening ceremony. 4 days maybe. I think 4 days at maximum we arrived before the opening ceremony, and hardly acclimatized. And the 400-meter hurdles was our first race in athletics.
Right.
You see, so I was straight away into business, and it was not good. It was not a very good. I would have preferred a bit longer, but I think money was something that each day cost the Malaysian Olympic Council so much money per athlete per day. So that's the number of days that we had, only 4 days, and it was quite traumatic in the sense that the Asian Games wasn't so much like that in '62. The '64 in Tokyo, you had a warm-up track outside the stadium, and then you warmed up there with your manager keeping an eye on you and reporting on you to every announcement. And I can hear the announcement also. Heat number 1, heat number 2, and all that. I remember I was in heat number 3 in the 400-meter hurdles, and half an hour before the race, you have to come out of the warm-up track go underground, under the tunnel of the main stadium. And there's another warm-up, run-up track. The warm-up track is a full 400 meters, but one underground is just 100 meters track. So you've got the hurdles and all that for you to practice a bit of hurdling. And 10 minutes before the race, you're asked to line up, and they march you outside. And when you come out of the into the stadium, you see the crowd, huge, 60, 70,000 people, and you are like, I don't know, it's like a kind of a trauma also, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you walk in.
Very overwhelming.
Yeah, very overwhelming. And you look at the hurdles, the hurdles look like matchboxes, That's how huge the stadium is.
The stadium is, right.
And the people and the hurdles are hardly noticeable. And it is fighting.
Yeah, it is fighting, I bet.
They march you to the starting point, and they brief you, and by that time you're already you're already nervous to the core.
I bet. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I wanted a bit more time to fit in more on cricket, because I mean, you're Malaysia's captain and quite a remarkable cricketer for Malaysia. So let's speak about that, and I'd like to spend a few minutes as well on your career in the Navy, which I find fascinating. Cricket for 5 minutes. Just tell us, your progression. I think it was you came out of athletics and then sort of turned more to cricket. And how did you end up as Malaysian captain?
Well, as I told you, I retired at a very young age of 24 when I had to go to UK. I gave up cricket and athletics, but I made a comeback. It's all just purely by chance. Athletics was purely by chance. I was a coaching, and then I got in because they wanted me to run. Cricket, I got posted to KL. If I wasn't posted to KL, I think if you had to be in KL in order to get into the team, nobody watches you in your jaw.
Right.
So I got posted to Ministry of Defence. And when I was in Ministry of Defence, I came and I wanted to be a member of a club. So I joined the TPCA first. And then only I joined Royal Selangor Club. And of course, cricket was the main thing in TPCA at that time. So I used to go to the nets. When I went to the nets, I used to see Hector and all these guys, Banerjee and all that there. And Hector is actually my vintage. He's only 2 months older to me. But I remember reading his name. But I don't know the other boys, Banerjee and all that. I never heard of them. They were like about 15 years younger to me or something like that. So I never heard of them. But they were all there warming up and practicing. So I introduced myself. And then I remember they asked me about who am I playing for in the Stoner Shield. I said, I don't know. You see? So then when I joined the Selangor Club, they took me in. So I started playing Stoner Shield. So in 1978, when I played for Selangor Club in the Stoner Shield in one of the games against VI Old Boys, the late Pradahan and Chan Yao Choi and all these Balakrishnan, these guys. I hit 128 runs there.
My goodness.
I went in at number 3 and scored 128. So my name started coming up, and I was playing for the club regularly in Stoner Shield games, and I was making runs. So I suppose they had no choice but to pick me, and I still had my agility and my speed. I think my fielding, helped me a lot to make up as one of the what do you call areas in cricket.
And that was something you brought over from athletics, right? I mean, that speed, the agility, that definitely came from there.
Predominantly batsman or bowler or both?
I started off as an opening batsman for the country. In 1960, when I played for Malaya against Singapore at the Singapore Padang, I opened the batting for Malaya. Right. And I was an opening batsman right after 1965. I played against MCC, Then I played All Malaya versus Singapore. It was all as an opening bat.
Right.
And come sort of a stock bowler, off spinner. I know Reggie that time was captaining Singapore. No, Reggie Da Silva.
Yes, of course.
I remember him captaining All Malaya against MCC.
Yeah.
And England, MCC were batting. And he brought me in 1 over before lunch. You know, and the third ball, I clean bowled that fellow, that wicket keeper, you know, England wicket keeper. I can't remember his name now.
What year was this?
1962. 62. It was before not. I'll get his name, but I can't remember now. I clean bowled him, and then we went for lunch. Came back after lunch. He gave me 3 more balls, and he took me off.
That's a bit rich.
Yeah, he said, thank you very much.
Yeah, the Singaporeans always doing that to us, Karu. Give us 3 balls and say get lost.
Yeah, I didn't feature much as a bowler, but when I played for Ceylon Sports Club in the league, Singapore League,
yes, right,
there I used to take a lot of wickets,
right,
a lot of runs. I used to always hit the fastest 100 in the Singapore League every year. You know, against.
So what was your fastest? How many balls? Your fastest 100?
93 balls.
Wow.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
That's like ODI, that's like ODI, present day ODI standard.
Amazing.
And then of course meteoric rise through Malaysian cricket, and then as you retired at I think age 41, and then you captained Malaysia as well, right?
Yeah, I was selected for the 1979 ICC trophy, the first one.
ICC trophy, yeah.
But I didn't go. I turned it down because they wanted us to pay for it. And I didn't. I said that's not right.
Yeah, as a matter of principle. Yeah.
You moved into team management also. So you eventually became the manager of the Malaysian team.
Later, I became secretary of the association first.
Right.
I was secretary for about 13 years with the MCA, Malaysian Cricket.
Yes.
And I was also doubling up as a manager for 1 or 2 tournaments.
Right.
And I became manager after that also up to about 2009, 2010. I was managing the national team.
Did you enjoy it? Did they give you a bit of latitude and freedom? Or?
Yeah, they gave me. You see, about me, normally, as you all know, managers really don't play a serious role because they just make sure you enter the bus on time, the bus comes on time, then you get your allowance and you sign and I keep a record. But in my case, because I was a cricketer and also I know a lot about cricket, the coach and me struck a good balance.
Right.
You see, and we worked together. The coach also appreciated my knowledge in cricket, and because I used to discuss with him, you see.
Right.
So we got along quite well. We were on the same page most of the time, and he used to consult me, and I used to give him advice, and things like we were both, and it helped. And we had a good team. We managed quite well. We beat Singapore a couple of times, Hong Kong a couple of times. Got beaten a couple of times as well.
I'm sure. Okay, we've got a few minutes left now, and I'd like to turn to something I find really intriguing, and that's your career in the Navy. And I find it intriguing to start off by asking you why the Navy. I mean, as a sort of Ceylonese family from Sri Lanka, settling in Malaysia, you would have thought it's a doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer kind of, yeah. And no, you don't want Thambi to go and expose himself on some ship and get shot, right? That's for sure, 100%. So how did you end up in the Navy?
Like I said, Gopal, we were a bit unfortunate, as I said. I remember I was a bright student. I was a good student, and if my education had not been interrupted, I would have probably. Yes, I would have probably looked at. I was very interested in wanting to be a lawyer, actually. Even after I joined the Navy, I was, in fact, encouraged then at that time. Chelva from Singapore?
Yeah. Very good friends with Zahir's mentor, actually, I think.
Yeah. Yes, I used to work with him.
Yeah. Chelva, I knew Chelva's father.
AP.
Chelva's father was a supporter of of cricket in Ceylon, was a staunch member of Ceylon Sports Club.
Absolutely. For the longest time, together with Kartigesu.
Yes. There are a lot of people there were staunch supporters. They used to a lot of them were lawyers as well. There was one president who was a lawyer, and his wife was German. I can't remember what's his name. President of Ceylon Sports Club. He presented me with a bat, and I still remember at that time I was only about 22 or 23 years old. I'd been in the Navy about 2-3 years, and he told me, "Why don't you do law? I can give you all the materials." That time, when we were, all this girlfriend la, this one la, that one la, time, and so nobody ever, no proper guidance, and I didn't have the right, the environment was not right, everything was not right. So I just stayed where I was. I joined the Navy. My father liked it. My mother didn't like it. She didn't want me to sign up, but I fell in love with the Navy when I went to Singapore, joined the Navy. When I came back and gave them the news that I had signed up, they were very upset, my mother in particular. So my father was all right. He was quite happy with that.
But can I stop you there? But why the Navy? Of the three armed forces, obviously you were saying, this is one of the options that opened up. Why Navy as opposed to Army or Air Force?
No, I applied after Form 5. I applied for all. I applied for teaching.
Okay.
I applied for teaching. I applied for the prisons. I applied for the police.
Right. Okay, I didn't know that.
I even applied to Bowstead.
Right.
And soon after I came back from Singapore, the interview, the Bowstead letter was there, asking me to come for an interview as a cadet planter. You see, but I didn't take it. I said I'll join the Navy.
Join the Navy. And tell us about your life in the Navy. I mean, you ended up as a lieutenant commander. Were you on the high seas?
Yes, I sailed a bit, but again, these people in the Navy, they always thought I was only good for cricket and athletics, they didn't think straight, you see.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why they thought that way. I took command. I was in command of a ship. I was in command of a squadron,
Wow.
And they still thought I would have been a better hurdler than a cricketer, you see. And every time they took me out and put me in, in a sports organization.
Right.
And finally, when they built that sports complex in Lumut, which at that time was the single largest complex in the country, it had all the facilities. So they needed someone to run it. So straight away they zoomed in on me. See? So they sent me to Australia and for a course. So I went for a holiday.
Right?
Yeah, had a holiday and came back. And I was posted from Ministry of Defence in KL straight to Lumut to manage the sports complex. And I retired. I retired very early. Optionally, I retired at the age of 45 because it was taking me nowhere. I was already frustrated with the work there. 6 years. They promised me that I was going to be promoted. Every year they promised me, but and then I heard that it was upgraded to a full commander's job, but every time give it to someone else. Gave that warrant, they call it the warrant, given to somebody else. I only learnt about it soon after I left, or just before I left. So I
Can I ask? Yeah, resignation 45. Can I ask then? What was it about life on the sea that you loved?
Very healthy. The life at sea was interesting. It was good to be out at sea. I think it's something that you don't experience when you're on land. You navigate by the heavenly bodies, as they say. The sun, the moon, the stars, the planets. You use them in the open sea. You use the sextant and you do your positioning. Interesting. Then you do a bit of patrolling, keeping pirates out and all that stuff like that. And I've done a lot of patrolling, but I didn't do much sea time. I think my total sea time was about maybe 7 or 8 years.
Right.
Which really is not great. I should have been doing like 15 years. I did a total of 22 years as an officer. 5 years as an apprentice engineer, so that's 27, 28 years. But my sea time was only about 8 years last sea time.
Okay.
You see, could have been better, but as I told you, they always thought that I was better playing cricket and athletics.
That's always the armed forces, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, Zahir, do you have anything?
Well, I only have two quick questions.
Sure.
The first is, you've taken up golf. How is your golf these days, Karu?
Oh, I'm so frustrated sitting around here. 6 months we have not been able to go out.
Yeah,
You know,
it's so
and
sad.
it's frustrating. I'm hoping that by next month, they will allow us to go and play. I used to be a single handicapper at one time when I started playing golf. I used to play to handicap 7, 8.
Just so unfair. Just so unfair, right?
So talented. It must be all the cricket. It must be
Just
the
so
cricket.
bloody unfair.
No, I think if you're a ball player, it comes quite naturally. A lot of the hockey players in Malaysia, all are Yogesh, Bala, Rajan, all these people, all of them were single
Gopal
handicappers.
is the cricketer, but he doesn't want to take up golf, Karu. So,
And your other one, Zahir?
and the last question was, I mean, how do you spend your time these days? Is it a lot more with the grandkids? Do you have a lot more family time? What is a typical day?
My typical day, I wake up in the morning, I make my own coffee, and those days I used to before I was savvy on computers, I used to read papers. I had to buy the papers, Straits Times, The Star, sit outside, have a cigarette, cup of coffee, and take about 1 hour to read all the papers. But now I stopped the papers completely, and I read, from the handphone. I read all the. I became a member of Malaysia Kini, and I read Malaysia Kini, FMT, Google News, and then I do gardening. I do a lot of gardening.
Wait. Now you got to start listening to Boleh the podcast before you do the gardening.
Absolutely.
What's that?
You got to listen to this podcast, Boleh the podcast, before you start the gardening.
Oh, I see. All right. Yeah, so that's typically my day, and then I wash the car, and I walk. I don't like walking. I hate walking and I hate jogging. But because of my age, I've been advised I should do it. So I do it. So I walk now about once in every 3 days. I go for a walk. My wife walks every day. I walk about once in 3 days. I walk 2 to 3 kilometers. Then I come back, and that is done. I do nothing else after that. I potter around the garden. That's all. You see. So like that, when there was golf available, I used to play golf. Now no golf, then I help around the house, and my grandchildren come to see me. I go and see them. We sit down and I chit chat. We play games. Take 2 cards, gin rummy. That's the only way. And sometimes I cook. My grandchildren like my cooking. Crab curry.
Crab curry, is that your specialty?
Yeah, I cook I like my chili crabs. I do that, and I also cook the saltfish sambal. Not pickles.
Okay.
Things like that.
Okay.
Something different from grandma's cooking.
But Zahir Rohini is also an outstanding cook.
Outstanding
Okay, so the next time you're allowed to travel out to Singapore, Rohini, we're coming up for lunch, by the way. Okay, well, listen, Karu, it's been 1 hour, 13 minutes and 49 seconds. It has been fascinating. Can I just say thank you for spending your time with us on Boleh the podcast. We've loved having you on. No, we've loved having you on. Thank you. And thank you, Rohini.
Enjoy the beer now. Thank you so much for your time.